first podcast of Crypto Talk Australia. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this with me.
You're welcome, Casey. It's good to be here. Good to have a chat.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll jump straight in because we had a pretty cool chat just before we started recording, and you're just so passionate about cryptocurrency. So I just would love to hear more about that. So how did you first get into cryptocurrency?
Yeah, good question. It was probably, I think it was back 2011. Somehow I'd heard about it. Of course, it wasn't that well known back then. And the reason I was attracted to cryptocurrency in the beginning is because I wrote about it in my book, and one of my goals in life was to help change the world's monetary system. I wrote in my first book, What I Didn't Learn at School, but which I had a whole chapter on the Federal Reserve banking scam, the central bank scam that it is. It's not federal at all. You know, the central bankers control and manipulate the issuance of money. And when you study the history of money, you realize that, you know, not much has changed in the banking system for 400 years, and enabled a small select group of people to basically take control of the issuance of money. And as a result, they could determine who won wars, and most wars were created as a result of trying to control who issued money, whether it's the American Civil War through to all the wars, you know, funded and for profit agendas. So I always believed that the only way to change the world ultimately was to change the world's monetary system and put a system that puts the power back in the hands of the people, because ultimately money belongs to us as individuals. It doesn't belong to the government, doesn't belong to simply the greedy bunch of central bankers. So that's why I got involved in cryptocurrency, because cryptocurrency, for those who don't know, Bitcoin come out of the credit crisis in 2008. Where because of the greed of banks and the irresponsibility that led to in '08 with the GFC, people don't realize the whole financial system was literally within 10 minutes of imploding. We could have been back in the dark ages of the Great Depression. That's how bad it was. So the idea and the people behind Bitcoin was to say, this needs to be decentralized. Why we allow money to be centralized through central banks, where a small elite few of people on the planet control the world to the detriment of everyone else. So the idea was to decentralize and put the power of the money back in the hands of the people. In other words, get out of this scam and this con of central banking and create something new that was for the people and run by the people. And that's really why I got involved in crypto in the beginning, because it fitted into one of my goals, was to help change and be a catalyst for that change, not to get rich quick. And I think, you know, we see what's happened in recent months. You know, obviously, you know, human emotion, when people see you can get rich quick, that's kind of jumped on the bandwagon, become a speculative tool. But I think if people remember what it's really about, it's about freeing the world from the central banking con. That, you know, and the group of bankers that run this world. That's what it's really about. And people understood that. The average person on the street, they would support it.
Yeah, absolutely.
As you know, sadly, the average person thinks Bitcoin is a scam or con because they've been so conditioned by the media, mainstream media, and by the bankers, etc. They can't tell what is a real con versus what's not a con. Yeah. And as a result, unless the masses become educated and understand the reality and support something that could help them restore money back to the hands of the people, then the banks will crush it, and people miss their once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to become free and no longer be a slave to the banks and the government.
Yeah. Wow, that's really cool. So with you deciding to get into, so was it Bitcoin the first coin?
Yeah, well, back those days, that's about all there was. There wasn't like several thousand cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
So there's Bitcoin, and there's a few little others, but predominantly that was it. So I got involved in that. I started writing a book, I think 2012. It was titled How to Become a Bitcoin Millionaire. And I joke these days, even though it was, you know, I think 264 pages, it probably only needed to be one page. That is, buy a Bitcoin, you become a millionaire.
Yeah.
Which anyone that did back then. So when Bitcoin got to $120 US at the time, that's when I, as being a financial educator, having a large group of people that had followed my, I guess, judgments on different things, I told them $120 start buying Bitcoin. There's something in this. It's proven. It's jumped up enough. There's enough behind it that this is not a fad. This is not a scam. This is something really behind this. And this is going to go. And I started doing media interviews then, etc. I was doing seminars on it. Back then, I held the first global Bitcoin conference in Australia in early 2014. And I founded the company which first introduced Bitcoin ATMs. This is back then, 2013, 14, into Australia, into Westfields, etc. So there was starting to be a bit of media then, and I went on media and I said, Bitcoin will go to at least 10,000. This is back in 2013. That would, in the future be at least 10,000 US, possibly 100,000. Now, at those days, people thought I was on drugs. It's like, what the hell is Jamie talking about? Now, some people obviously went out and bought Bitcoin because they knew my track record. I predicted people the gold back 20 years ago when it was 200 an ounce to buy. I told my followers to buy it. Went to 10 times, almost 200 an ounce. I told people to bottom the property market in the US 2009, and bought over 400 properties in the US, and obviously that market recovered rapidly and people made a lot of money. So I was always able to identify trends, but that's because I could see the bigger picture and I could understand human psychology and how that affects investments. And so Bitcoin was the first one. And I sold $21,000 worth of gold and put that into Bitcoin. Wow. I also bought some more Bitcoin. I remember one I was bought the first manufactured vehicle in the world with Bitcoin, and it cost me, I think, 30,000 in Bitcoin back then, and I gave it as a present, a Father's Day present to my dad. I grew up on a farm, and my dad's in the farm, so it's like this Tom car, this farm vehicle, and I was joking. I was home at the farm. Reese said, "Dad, that $30,000 Tom car I bought you, it's worth about $2 million today." So that's a very expensive Father's Day present.
That's kind of what puts a lot of people off Bitcoin, is the volatility of it. Do you think it will ever settle down at all? Or?
Yeah, well, I think you've got to look at it in two ways. Well, I'd rather the volatility generally has been in upward direction for most of its life. Which is the complete opposite to money. People don't understand the volatility of money. Money is volatile downwards. But it's a bit like, if you look at the analogy, Casey, if you put a frog into a saucepan of hot water, and the frog will jump straight out because it knows it's hot. Put a frog in a cold water, in a saucepan of cold water, and you put a Bunsen burner under it and light it, and slowly, ever so slowly, heat that saucepan of water up. The frog will stay there and boil to death. And this is how humans are. We've been so conditioned, so conned by the banking system, that we accept that $100 50 years ago, we know wouldn't buy a fraction of. $100 you could have bought almost a house, But today you'd struggle to buy groceries for a family. You wouldn't be able to. Even 10 years ago at 100. So we are like the frog. We're slowly boiling to death. Our money is being diluted and worth less and less every year. This is the scam of the banking system. We're all taught, how do you get this thing called money? You've got to go to school, get a good education, you've got to go and get a good job and work the rest of your life and be basically a slave and selling your time for this thing called money. These pieces of paper with dead, deceased notables on them. Yet, do the banks work for it? The banks print it out of thin air. It's a complete and absolute con. The money's got zero backing. People go, well, why would I invest in Bitcoin? It's got no backing. I go, well, kind of like the US dollar, kind of like fiat currency. Exactly. It has zero backing. And nothing's backing it other than what? Debt, It's completely, once people understand it's a banking con and they're being sold a lie, you're going to work for it and be a slave to the system. Think in Australia, back in the 1950s, maybe one of the couples could work and pay off a house. You look in Sydney today, you'd have to be both working, earning six-figure incomes, and you still couldn't afford the average house in Sydney, which is $1 million, which is a complete dump.
Exactly.
So the reality is that it doesn't matter. You follow the system. Everyone is getting less wealthy every year because the price of everything go up, because money is being devalued because of the scam run by the bankers. And they own most of the media, they own most of the military, these people. So people are brainwashed and they just tolerate it because everyone's so busy trying to survive. They don't go, hang on a minute, is this system fair, equitable and transparent and honest? Or are we being had? because everyone's been had. They're too busy working to create a peaceful revolution and go, enough is enough. This is not the way the world should be. There is plenty of money and there's plenty of abundance on this planet for everyone to do well. No human should need to work more than 2 or 3 days a week to survive. There's plenty of abundance in nature. The idea that we have to work 5, 6 days a week and get a couple of weeks off holiday a year is because we're being conned and into a system where we're slaves to a system that we don't have to be if we stood up to it. And Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is the greatest opportunity humankind has had in our lifetime, ever will have, a very small window of opportunity to put the power back in the hands of the people. And if the people don't get that, they're going to remain slaves to the day they die, and it's their own fault for being ignorant. So I would say to be ignorant and be stupid enough to fall for what the real con is. And the real con is mainstream media and their lies and the central banking system.
So cryptocurrency has come around at the perfect time, because I heard this morning that for people under 35, this will be the first time in history that they're less likely to earn more money than their parents because of inflation. And now we have cryptocurrency, which is based on deflation. So the value increases because of deflation instead of inflation, which is just such a disruptive technology.
Especially for banks, they detest that.
Exactly. So how do you think that the banks are going to take this? Are they going to take it lying down? Are they going to say, well, we want good for everyone as well? Or
yeah, it's a very good question, and ultimately that will determine the future of it. Well, the banks weren't doing much about it initially because they didn't think it would take off as big as it was. But you're seeing, obviously Bitcoin in last November took off and it went broke through 10,000, hit nearly 20,000 US, 26,000 Australian. That's when it got the world's attention, because last year people were able for $10,000 turn it into $1 million. Many people become millionaires, and people did get rich quick. So of course everyone wanted to jump on the bandwagon because people go from fear of investing to the fear of missing out. Okay? So it switches very rapidly. And fear and greed is what drives stock market. So of course it's going to drive this as well. Which is sad in a little way, because it was never really about getting rich quick. It was about trying to change the world. Yeah. But let's accept that's human psychology. And of course, why wouldn't people want to get rich? They're slaves to a banking system that's ripping them off.
Exactly.
Slowly stealing their wealth. If there's a way out of that, of course they're going to want to do that. And it would be great to have the money in the hands of the people. So that you understand, it really depends. Banks have recognized technology is going to disrupt them, because no industry can be protected from disruption. So the blockchain technology is what the world's really excited about. So banks would recognize that and know they're going to be disrupted. And so they should. They haven't been disrupted for 400 years. Yeah. Why do we need intermediaries to control our money, and we pay them fees, etc., and they use our money to loan it out multiple times, fractional reserve banking, and profit off our money?
Exactly. You don't see a cent of that.
Yeah, I know. So we get paid a little bit, and they're just charging it out. So it's a little bit like Uber versus the taxis. So for a while, the taxis were asleep and didn't recognize Uber was a threat until Uber was too big to stop. But because Uber was able to rally enough consumer support, when the taxi industry goes to fund the lobbyists, to get the politicians on their side, Uber was able to go out to their supporters and go, no, stand up to this, otherwise they're going to crush us. Yeah. So it's going to come down to that. It's going to come down to the average person. Don't be a dumb schmuck, too busy working, too busy working to make a life, too busy working for a living to live. Yeah. You've got to wake up. You've got to see what's going on around this world and get educated. Otherwise, you're going to be brainwashed so easily. So if enough people wake up and realize that, hey, cryptocurrency is the chance to end enslavement and break free from this banking system that is ripping people off, then it will stand a chance. But you've seen in recent months with why Bitcoin went from 19,000 down to 6,000 was a coordinated attack by the central bankers. Yeah. They realize it's now a serious threat to their issuance and control of the world's money supply. And what they did was a coordinated attack to continually release negative news and saying this to try and drive it down. Yeah. So they would like to crush it if they could, but I can tell you now Bitcoin's too big. It's like saying we're going to stop the internet. Well, good luck. Yeah. At the end of the day, what they have to watch, if they go too heavy-handed, it's just going to drive more people to crypto, because we're going to go, see, that's the reason we're doing it, because we don't trust banks and we don't trust our government.
Exactly.
And very good reasons not to trust banks or governments, because they don't represent the people. They represent lobbyists. And most of them don't have the balls to speak the truth. So it will be a battle. And right now we have a battle. And that battle was driving it from 19,000 down to 6,000. It should be 50,000 already, Bitcoin. But the banks started closing bank accounts, making it incredibly difficult to use it. Because they realize in the future, why would we have a bank account? We'll have a crypto account. And it's outside the banking system, so it can't be stolen by the governments. It can be stolen by hackers, but there's ways to protect yourself from that. But with the bank account, people don't realize the governments can go and freeze your bank account anytime they want. They do it all the time. Exactly. And banks can go and freeze it. So there's a war going on out there. So it's who's going to win the war? It's up to consumers to stand up for themselves, stand up for their rights, and go, hey, this is our money. If we want to exchange crypto between each other or buy things and take it as a value exchange, then that's our business. In the past, if you created money, tried to compete with the banks, and you'd be jailed for counterfeiting. With crypto, you actually can create your own money. So it's only a matter of time before they try and ban that or regulate it to get control back. But that's going to be a constant battle. So whoever wins that battle will determine the future of the banking system on the planet.
Well, that was the kind of disposition that I saw over the Christmas period, was when people hit their FOMO, the fear of missing out. They're like, okay, I want in, and then banks would freeze their bank accounts. I knew so many people that happened to, and they just got the first taste of the fact that their money is not in their hands. Their hard-earned money is easily controlled by someone else. And
I think people are like, oh my God, Bitcoin could crash to zero. It's like, or a lot of my friends are investment bankers or hedge fund managers, and they're like, oh, it's a bubble. And I said, well, okay, I posted on Facebook, and you can see all these posts even years ago when I said, this is what it's going to, 10,000 back in 2013. I posted all these little public statements. But I said recently, well, it's funny how all these so-called investment experts say that Bitcoin's a bubble. I said, why don't they also be honest with their clients and go, so is the US dollar is a bubble. So is US stock exchange, the stock market is a bubble. So is Sydney property prices a bubble. So it's not a matter, is it a bubble? Is it a bubble? It's irrelevant, because all the other choices are you investing in bubbles. So what I said, I'm happy. Why would I invest in a bubble that might get me 3, 4, 5% return and take massive risk when I can invest in a bubble such as cryptocurrency, make 1,000% return? So it's all a matter of comparing to that. So banks, they switch a lot of people's accounts off. It's basically they're behaving like taxis. They don't want people putting money into crypto. Last November, there was about 30 million accounts opened for Bitcoin. Stockbroking accounts in the world that would have been opened in last November wouldn't even added up to 100,000. So you can see where the money's shifting. I've wrote articles about investment banking, how their lunch is getting cut. Why investors get disrupted is because ego and arrogance. They don't see it coming. If they saw it coming, they'd do something about it. Most of them too blinded through their sheer arrogance. They don't see it. There's still people that think Bitcoin's, is a con or doesn't work. Bitcoin has already become by far the world's most successful investment in human history already. If it did nothing more, it's already proven itself. And amazing technology. So even Warren Buffett, admittedly Warren Buffett's a successful investor, but he says he won't invest in anything he doesn't understand, which I agree. So, but that's not an excuse not to get educated. That's really what I would say to Warren Buffett, great investor in the past. But if you don't understand crypto, then it's your duty as an investor, if you're going to be the world's greatest investor, to understand it. Because once you understand it, you're more likely to consider it as an investment. Now, so just because someone's a billionaire doesn't mean they're always right. So because they struggle with new technology, they struggle with the future. So
and it's also threatening his company as well, because it's stuck in the traditional model of investing.
Absolutely, yeah, and true. Someone as big as Warren would, it would shift the market if he said, "Yeah, I think cryptos are great." Well, I just bought $1 billion worth.
Yeah.
And the market's it's probably too small of an investment yet for him,
Yeah.
And then he knows he can influence markets. But you've got to understand, some of these people, what they say publicly, aren't investing. Just like these banks, they saying J.P. Morgan, Jamie Dimon, trashing Bitcoin at the same time J.P. Morgan was buying it. So you got to understand market manipulation. It used to happen a lot more in the stock market. It's regulated to a degree to reduce it, but trust me, it still happens in a big way.
Yeah.
They're manipulating the Bitcoin market. They would put out negative news to drop the price, and the banks would go in and buy a lot of it. So the same thing, people that are trashing it are also profiting from it. So the Bitcoin would have hit probably 30, 40, 50,000 by now. The banks tried to stop that and stop the money going into it. It's so difficult for a lot of people to buy it.
Yeah.
They cap you to $500 at a time until you can get your account up. And so it's very frustrating. So to reduce that going in, but still then it's very resilient, as we know. And with the correction from 19,000 to 6,000, that was very predictable. So people have been following Bitcoin for a long time. They would have saw that, wouldn't have been worried by that. But people that just jumped in at 19,000 at the peak and then see it drop 60, 70%, they're probably freaked out. But that'll test their faith, because are you in this to buy something and check it at the price in 5 years, or you're trying to get rich quick? And if you're always trying to get rich quick and don't really understand something, well then of course you're not going to do as well. You're going to be stressed. Like the funny thing is, when Bitcoin was went through 10,000 last year, people cracking open champagne and celebrating. When it dropped below 10,000 2 months later, people were ringing the suicide hotline number.
Yeah.
So it's not an issue for Bitcoin, it's an issue for people. If people can attach such a meaning to, one, be celebrating life and opening champagne bottles when it hits 10,000 for the first time, 2 months later be wanting to commit suicide when it's at the same price when 2 months before they were celebrating, then I think there's something wrong with their psychology. They need to develop a psychology around investing, that they don't freak out by attaching such irresponsible meanings to something.
Well, that's kind of the problem, because you've got all these new people coming into this market that have never invested before. Like, you're a seasoned investor in traditional markets. You understand the psychology, you've read all the books, you've given seminars and taught yourself, and you know how important this is. But people that are new to this, like, it's really created an entry point for so many people, young people, old people, people that have $10 that they want to stick in. Like, you can't stick $10 on the stock exchange, and they just don't have the tools yet, or the education. Like, all of a sudden the door's open and it's a free-for-all, but they still need the tools to understand what can happen. And I just think that that's really important for people like us in the crypto space to get that information out there.
Yeah, I agree. Every industry, it's a mass education program, because to make an industry grow, you have to have consumer awareness.
Yeah.
I'm always a big believer that education is far superior than regulation. I'm not a big believer in over-regulation. We live in Australia, as a nanny state, and the regulators really got a lot to be desired for. Education is the key. I partner with Bitcoin Inc., which is a not-for-profit organisation, to assist in providing that education. A lot of it's provided for free, because you really have to educate consumers, at least have a basic understanding of it. You don't have to understand all blockchain technology and all the intricacies of that. It's like you drive a car. Do you really know how it works? Yeah. You just have to know the basics, how to indicate, and how to stop and how to go, and hopefully you get a license. So you don't have to understand how the engine works. So education is critical, but also but what I understand is that the process of learning, though, is by doing. So as long as everyone comes in the crypto space, if you're thinking as an investor and go, well, as long as you're playing with money you can afford to lose, then what do you got to worry about? If it's too volatile for you and too stressful, then don't do it. As Steve Wozniak, I met a few years ago, and he bought Bitcoin and was a fan of it, but he sold a lot of it because he goes, look, my key to life is being happy. That's what I focus on. So anything that causes me stress, I don't invest in too much. So he still got a bit of Bitcoin, but he's like, for me it was too volatile and kept, can keep me up at night. I'd rather so if you're that sort of person, then don't do it. Or just if you got $1,000, you say, look, I'm going to put into it, take a punt. and it's money I can afford to lose, then you can sleep at night factor.
Yeah.
That $1,000 could turn into 10,000 or 100,000 if done rightly in crypto world, which is very exciting. But it could go to zero.
Exactly.
So really, that's my psychology. I only put in money that I can afford to lose.
Yeah.
And I was, when I first,
that's brilliant.
Yeah, and I put in 20,000. Sold gold because I believe Bitcoin was going to new gold years ago, and 20,000 turned into almost 2 million. So a lot of people go, well, that's pretty exciting. I'd punt 20,000, turned into 2 million as well.
Yeah.
But you've got to be willing to lose that.
Exactly.
And that's and most people, I've always said in my seminars, the fastest way to get wealthy is the sooner you get in a position where you can afford to lose some money. Now, what people think, I don't want to lose any money. Well, of course, no one wants to lose money, but if you can't handle losing money, you don't deserve the right to be rich.
Yeah.
And that's why most people are broke, because they're trying to get rich quick and they don't want to lose. It's kind of like saying, I want to be a world champion boxer, but I don't want to get hit. I want to be the world champion boxer, but I don't want to get hit. Come on, don't be a moron. You're going to get hit, but it's the key. How can you learn to take those hits and not see it as failure? Then you have the chance to win the game. So if you can afford to go, look, I can afford to lose $1,000, I can afford to lose $10,000 to 100,000, a million, wherever you're at. Of course, you don't want to lose it, but if you're willing to take that risk, then of course you deserve them to make the upside. But you're not going to go and sell your house and risk everything. In saying that, though, I put my house last year up on the market for Bitcoin because I was happy to sell it for 500 Bitcoin at the time, because I knew that Bitcoin was going to rise rapidly. And if I had sold it for 500 Bitcoin, it would have been worth, 2.5 times that, with a space of a month later.
Yeah.
So it depends where your risk level is at and how confident you are. But the more you understand an industry, so most of my knowledgeable friends in cryptocurrency are very bullish. Yeah. So they had no issue. They're not panicking. They bought a shitload more at 6,000.
Yeah, exactly.
And where some people were selling and panicking, thinking it's going to go to zero. Never take your source of information from mainstream media. Mainstream media are a combination of ignorant journalists in most cases. No offense to them, but let's face it. Are they masters of the universe? Have they really had any life experience? And two, they can't write what they want. They can write what they dictate it to write. The editors control it. And the editorial around Bitcoin is a narrative to control it. It's a bubble. It's a con. It's this. It's that. And I love when they write that, because then they have egg all over their face, shortly after, because, Bitcoin's recovered. It doubled in price. So you could have bought Bitcoin at 6,000, doubled to almost 12,000 in space of, 5-6 weeks. So even the price dropping down gives new people the opportunity to come in and buy. But most people were selling then. So unless you have a certain strong psychology, you wouldn't have bought. You miss out. So
exactly. Well, it's funny because a lot of people, when it hit about 24,000, people were saying to me, damn it, I wish I had more Bitcoin. And when it's dropped all the way back, I said, well, now's your opportunity to get more Bitcoin. Your wish is Bitcoin's command right now. So it was a great time to buy back in.
Yeah.
What about government regulation? How do you feel about government regulation when it comes to cryptocurrencies? Do you think we need more? Do you think they shouldn't touch it?
Well, look, regulation is important to some degree, but the question has got to be, I don't always trust regulators. So I've dealt with them personally. I find them that they're not really interested in protecting people. They're interested in feathering their own nests and making out that they're doing something useful on the planet. Well, generally they really are. So it's the intention behind it. If the regulation is intended to create a better framework and generally to protect some investors, then all for it. If the intention is to crush it or to put the control of it back in the hands of the banks so they can charge fees for ICOs, at the moment ICOs are raising more than IPOs, and the banks are getting none of that. They hate that. They're normally, and it's to regulate it to stop the average person being able to make money and get rich, then I don't like it. What I love about crowdsourcing, which is cryptocurrency users, is that the average person can put in $50, $100, $1,000. And why isn't the average person? See, normal investments are not allowed. No. Retail investors, sorry, you have to go to a financial planner and you are going to get stitched up by this dodgy industry of financial planning, where people have to be licensed and they're going to charge you a fortune. So the banks control those products and manage funds, etc. I don't agree with that. I think the average person can be educated and take a punt, and they should be out. What you do with your money should not be dictated to you by ASIC, whether you can invest in something or not.
Yeah.
They treat everyone as a victim, or this whole idea that they're a victim. It's like, no, people have to be allowed to invest and learn from their mistakes. Yes, protect them from outright scams, but if we had regulation to protect us from outright scams, central banking system would be shut down because it's the greatest scam.
Yeah.
Regulators, what do they do about banks? Nothing, other than pay lip service to it. So don't tell us that they need to regulate. Oh, we need to step in and regulate because all these people are losing money in crypto. Hello? I don't know too many people lost money in crypto. I know a hell of a lot of people. 95% of people made a fortune out of crypto. Up until the recent correction, no one would have lost money hardly out of crypto. And even then, still, they wouldn't have lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
So don't be fooled that regulators are interested in protecting investors.
Yeah.
Regulators are pushed by lobbyists to protect old legacy industries such as banking. So regulation, if done in the right intent, that doesn't stifle innovation, that supports an industry, would be good for cryptocurrency, because there is scams out there. But there's scams in every industry. The height of Facebook to go and ban cryptocurrency because, there's some scams. It's like, okay, so ban all your advertising across every single industry because there's scams in every single industry, if that's your rationale. That's basically Facebook's been tapped on the shoulder by those who run the world and go, we want this industry slowed down or stopped, so stop advertising. I mean, that's why I lost, Facebook for me is done. I'm starting a competitive Facebook with cryptocurrency purely because of that, because I think enough people no longer trust them. So, yes, regulation for the right reasons is good for the industry, and you'll see it adopted mainstream. Regulation that is done with the pure intent to crush it, then I think that will be damaging to the industry and damaging to the ability for it to change the world. So we must be wary of what the regulation is for. If it's done for the right intent. Now, there's some good people in government that support cryptocurrency, support innovation, see it as a new technology. And so those people I support. I don't support those who just want to crush it and use regulation as a tool to put it back in the hands of the banks, and then we'll miss the opportunity to change the world.
I really liked your education in place of regulation, because there is a lot of places where you should be educated instead of it being regulated.
Yeah.
And that's just like so many things with so many.
Yeah, well, you can't regulate against stupidity.
Yeah.
You can educate against that.
Yeah, exactly.
And two, you have to be in it, something to learn. The idea that, people might lose money, good.
Yeah.
How do you think you become a millionaire? If you can't take the punches in the ring in the early days, you're not going to win the World Boxing Championship. Like, stop trying to become a world champion boxer without getting hit and getting knocked to the ground. Like, learn to grow up and have some balls and toughen up. That's how you win in life. You can't protect little people and put them in cotton wool. That's like trying to raise kids and put them in cotton wool. No, put them out on a football field or soccer field or sporting field. Toughen them up.
Yeah.
Because the world's not going to be easy on them. If you put them in cotton wool, well, you're setting them up for failure, you know?
Exactly. I just wanted to, speaking about regulation and ICOs, Bill Gates has come out on Reddit and said that he thinks that the speculative wave around ICOs and cryptocurrencies is super risky for those who are going along. What do you think about ICOs? Do you think that they're a safe, investment? Have you invested in any ICOs yourself?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of ICOs. I think, you got to look at it this way. The time you've heard of a cryptocurrency, generally, it's hugely successful. Like, people might buy Bitcoin, 10,000 US or 19,000 US, some people. But that was once 10 cents, So people go, I wish I had bought it at 10 cents. No, you wouldn't have the balls to, because no one took it seriously. So you can say you wish you had it, but at the time, you were alive on the planet, you could have, but one, you didn't know about it, or two, where you had the courage to do it. Yeah. So, but if you want to make the big money, of course, there is future coins, cryptocurrencies that can be the next big thing out there. I wrote an article late last year, that pretty much I would see that every industry should have their own cryptocurrency. Now, at the time I wrote that was considered out there. Yeah. But very quickly, that's now accepted, that pretty much there is crypto starting, or multiple ones for every industry. So the adoption and the rate of the adoption of this technology is very rapid. So yes, ICOs would be speculative, but most people are gamblers. Most people aren't investors, so they're happy gambling. Look at the greatest get-rich scheme that's endorsed by the government is Lotto. They're going, oh, don't go and invest in ICOs. It could be risky. Buy a lotto ticket and give us money, which is one of the greatest scams. Or let's go and punt on the horses, or pokies, we'll go to the RSL and, or Vegas and we'll, compared to what? Risky compared to what? So yes, it's speculative, but name another way that you can turn 10,000 into $1 million in the next 12 months. ICOs can do that in a few months, and they have. Business Insider did an article late last year. They tracked 250 ICOs in 2017, even counting the ones that failed, ones that went to zero. The average return was 1,321%. So I've just launched a hedge fund for cryptos and real estate, because that's predominantly two things I invest in. And the returns last year on crypto funds averaged over 1,000%. The returns on average for hedge funds that weren't invested in crypto was 8%. So those who don't like crypto will find you don't like making a large amount of money. But I have a lot of billionaire friends and family offices that I speak to, people that invite me into their boardrooms because, of my successful predictions of Bitcoin, to know what's going to go on. And a lot of them do have an interest now in developing, a portfolio into cryptocurrencies and ICO. So what I would say is that, yes, I spread it, diversify. I'm very bullish on crypto mining, so I've set up a mining operation. ICOs I invest in and I advise on, but I only advise on the ones that I think will succeed, because I also get paid in crypto. So unless they're going to succeed, I'm wasting my time. Top 5 cryptos I invest in. So you can spread it around. So you might do a combination of it. So I think, yes, if you've got some money you can afford to lose and you're willing to speculate, you can do quite well out of ICOs. But of course, you've got to pick the ones that have long-term business. Some of them are just pump and dumps. They're just a concept. But, if you can see they have a business model that you can understand and likely to work, that's the first thing you'd look for. The second thing you'd look for would be team. What's the team behind it? Can they deliver? Have they delivered in the past? They're the two things you're looking for. So it's kind of the same as the stock market, but that's a criteria. That can narrow it down. Last year, when all ships rise in a high tide, so of course you could be a guru in the crypto market because you could trade and make a lot of money. Now it's going to be, you're going to have to actually work a little bit more for it and become a savvy investor, just like you would have to do in the stock market. But there's still a lot more opportunity because it's not as regulated. But you just got to be able to pick the ones that are more likely to succeed and willing to take a risk, and you can do very well. So yes, Bill Gates is right saying, yes, they're speculative and they're risky, but I always ask the question, risky compared to what? Risky compared to buying lotto tickets, risky compared to punting on the horses, risky compared to getting 3%, in a managed fund. You got to compare that. The returns, 1,000% type returns or 100,000% in some cases, I'm willing to take a risk for some of those things.
Still on the Bill Gates thing, he also proceeded to say, which made me giggle, so I thought you might have an opinion on this. Right now, cryptocurrencies are used for buying fentanyl and other drugs, so it is a rare technology that has caused deaths in a fairly direct way.
He's blaming crypto for deaths of... Well, I would say to Bill Gates, your vaccine programs just spread around to third world countries cause more deaths than anything else. So just because you're a billionaire doesn't mean you're right. So, no, I think that's nonsense. People say, the media try and taint Bitcoin. It's used by drug users, or Silk Road used to be in the past. Like cash isn't used by the drug industry as well. So I think to suggest that is just absurd. People should be allowed to buy things anonymously. It's no one else's business. Why is the government's business what you want to buy? And I don't want to bring up the vaccine debate, but Bill Gates is a big proponent of pushing vaccines that are not proven, not tested into third world countries, and it's caused all sorts of damages. So, I'm not always a fan of what Bill Gates has to say.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I thought we might be able to talk a little bit about your favorite coins or tokens.
Yeah, sure. Obviously, Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash. is one that, I mean, I can't give advice to people, but Bitcoin Cash is a breakaway, obviously a fork from Bitcoin. It will probably do very well. The people behind it. Ripple's done well, but I think Ripple's overvalued, and a lot of people don't like it because it's banks have some involvement in that. Litecoin, some people say, is great. Could be, the superior system, but I think things like Stellar is a very good one. So Stellar, you'll see, do quite well. Litecoin's risen in the last month. I did say it'll double within the last month, and it has pretty much done that. Stellar, I think, is certainly a good one. There's a few others out there like Neo, etc. That will change as new ones come up. You just got to keep an eye on them. They're anything in the top 10 is generally, they're in the top 10 for a reason. But that will change. The top 10 a year ago has changed. So, but then if you're looking for new ones, new ICOs, of course, they're much more harder to find and be right. But
because there's so many.
There's so many now, and but it's kind of like, the .com. See it as a .com boom.
Yeah.
So what was great about the .com boom, even though anything that mining stocks that would worth a cent change the name to an internet.com company and all of a sudden worth a fortune. It's like throwing mud on the wall. A lot of it will slide down and you'll lose your money on ICOs, but some will stick.
Yeah.
And out of that, where Google and Amazon and Facebook and eventually, and all these big companies come out of the .com boom. So if they didn't throw mud on the wall. So what happens when there's a boom like there is in crypto, or certainly was up into early January 2018, is there's a lot of money being attracted to ideas. So some of those ideas are dumb ideas, will never succeed, but some are great ideas that couldn't get capital before. I'll give you an example. So an ICO that I'm involved in is Aircoin. That was an idea that myself and some other investors had a couple of years ago, is to take on Airbnb. I mean, I've built companies around Airbnb, probably been the highest owner in Airbnb and making millions of dollars a year from Airbnb. So I knew their weaknesses. I knew the business inside out. I've met with the founders, etc. So I thought I could create a platform that could compete with that. But never got around to it because raising capital, it takes time, got all these other projects on. Yeah. But now it's been turned into a cryptocurrency called Aircoin. Much easier to raise capital.
Yeah.
Much easier to attract customers, people that want to list on the platform because they want crypto. So thanks to crypto, there's an idea. Now that's a proven business model. Yeah. So most people go, I understand Airbnb, it's a $30 billion company. Understand how they make their money. So a cryptocurrency taking that industry on has a high degree of chance of succeeding. So there's a lot of industries like that. Another one I'm advising for a client is called C-Uber, the Uber for couriers. So basically, in other words, with the growth of Amazon, the last mile is their challenge, meaning last mile delivery.
Yeah.
So getting a parcel from a warehouse in Sydney sent to, say, Gold Coast warehouse, that's the easy part. Courier companies can do that. It's getting from the warehouse quickly to your house, that last mile. So any apps or any logistics companies can help solve that, can do very well. So the idea of, they want Uber drivers or anyone to become a courier, to log in, go pick up that parcel and drop it off. They might be driving home and they can pick it up and drop it off. Yeah. So in other words, courier companies can then outsource, or individual people can become a courier and be independent and freelance. So to create that opportunity and help solve that problem. So I took that one on to advise them because I saw the concept and go, well, I think that can work. People can understand Uber, they can understand the courier industry and understand the growth of Amazon. That's a growing trend, and go, if you can solve that problem, then that's a good business. People can understand the business model if you have a good team behind it. And then if you add crypto and blockchain to it, which make it more efficient and more attractive, you can raise capital. As an example, that's an industry that could likely succeed. So these are things that I look for when I'm looking to invest in ICOs. Yeah. Does it have a proven business model? Do I, like the Warren Buffett strategy, do I understand it? Do I understand the concept? Got the concept? Okay, who's the team behind it? Can they deliver? Yeah. If those two things match, you're likely to succeed. So it's like anything, you just have to become a rational, a logical investor and remain calm. Where most people, fear and greed is what's driving them. Yeah. And greed drove them to buy 19,000 Bitcoin and drove them to sell at 6,000. When they stayed calm they wouldn't have panicked. They probably would have sold at 19,000 and bought back in at 6,000.
So do you trade, or like do you trade more often than not, or do you just
Predominantly, I've never been a trader.
Yeah.
I've always been a holder. So I'm more of a Warren Buffett investor where you buy and hold. Warren always used to talk about that. If you're going to buy a stock in the stock market, you should put the share certificate in your cupboard and not look at it for 5 years. In other words, not care what the stock price is. So generally, I don't care what Bitcoin price is. Other than I pay more of attention to it now, because if I'm involved with ICOs and they're raising capital, if Bitcoin's going up, it's much easier to raise capital. If Bitcoin's going down, people are scared. So other than that, if you're in Bitcoin for long haul and you don't need to check the price, it's irrelevant, because you're only interested in what the price is in 5 years from now. So if you think Bitcoin's going to be 100,000 in 5 years and you can buy it at 10,000, you're going to go, well, I don't care. Punt 10,000 and buy one Bitcoin. And in 5 years, you might have $100,000 there. So I've predominantly not been a trader. You can make a lot of money out of trading, but it requires a lot more education and a certain, as you know, a certain millionaire mindset or certain psychology. So you can go and get trained for those things, and some people are great at it. Last year, average people made a lot of money out of trading, but because all ships rise in a high tide. So some of those people think they're gurus, experts in crypto, and they've only been involved in it like 6 months. So don't think you're a guru because you've made money in a market that's rising. Because as Warren Buffett says, when the tide goes out, we'll see who's been swimming naked. And so never think you're the guru. The market will slap you and teach you a lesson. So I always prefer, because it's easier to predict long term. But in saying that, I have friends that follow technical analysis, and we were able to determine with patterns and go, well, I expect Bitcoin, when it was dropping, to hit bottom at about 6,000 and rise back up to about 12,000, 13,000. It did exactly that. So if you understand charting and patterns, you can use that to be a better trader. And that was fairly predictable. So people following that, that's pretty much how I said to people, this is what's going to happen. It'll drop to about 6,000, jump back up to 12,000, hit 12,000 and drop back down a bit. And now it's heading back up towards 12,000. So now if we could go and look at the pattern and grasp, see where it's going now, we could make another prediction of where it's likely to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So would that be like your golden number, like 5 years? Do you have a specific year time frame that you stick on?
As far as long-term investing, you can do long. It depends if you can do short. You can do short-term trading, like daily trading, which people do, but that takes a lot of work, and people forget that it's a job. So it's got to make enough money to replace your job before you're in front. Where if you buy and hold, it's not a job. But you can do longer. Like you could have been a buy and hold and go, okay, but when it hits 19,000, I think it's going to cool after that. I've made so much money, so I'm going to cash out, or cash out some, and if it dips, I'll buy back in. So you always do it. You can all break it up and do a bit of that. So I just find it's easy to predict patterns over a longer period of time than it is to predict patterns in a shorter period of time. Does it make sense? So that's why I'm more of a holder. But that doesn't mean people can't be traders. I will do trading, but it won't be me doing the trading. I'll model top traders, which I do, and have that mirrored, because I don't want to spend time watching a computer every day, etc. It's not what I want to do. But other people go, that would be my dream job, to stay at home and watch charts and stuff like that. And certainly, if you're going to trade, certainly the traders love volatility. So some people don't like volatility. You want volatility as a trader. So you can certainly make some very big money being a trader if you get yourself educated. And there's courses out there you can do that with, and to have the right psychology. And there's big money to be made, but it takes skill. And not everyone has the patience or the psychology to do that. So remember, a lot of people just want, and that's why a lot of people don't invest, because they can't handle stress of losing. So they'd rather just work away and have a very stability, the idea, the illusion of security. A secure job.
In the name of like education, which you strongly believe in, for people that are just getting into the crypto space, is there any books or seminars or anything like that?
Well, they can get my book on Amazon, but they also give away. I was invited to partner with Bitcoin Inc. So they go to bitcoininc.org. They can get that book for free and a heap of video tutorials. So you can get a lot of stuff there for free. So that was an organization set up by early stage Bitcoin investors to be a not-for-profit organization, education organization. and they have free courses and paid courses. So that's bitcoininc.org, and they can watch a lot of videos, etc. on there. Some really good stuff on there. And that's probably the first step, is getting educated, and then figuring out what do you want to do. Do you want to? So there's a lot of different ways you can make money. As I mentioned, crypto, you can buy and hold, which is the simplest form. You can trade, you can mine, or invest into a bigger mining operation. We allow people to do that in our operation in Quebec, Canada, where you can buy the hardware, which sits in and it's managed by a professional company in a much larger mining operation. And I think a lot of people don't understand mining. Out of all the ways to make money, actually mining is where I think the most money will be made, because it's a business that's consistent 24 hours 7. You're effectively mining digital tokens. Yeah. So but generally, unless you've got a couple of $1 million, you'd need to invest into an existing mining where you can get in for a couple of thousand. Most people don't want to invest $2 million into a mining operation. And ICOs, but the other way is pre-ICOs. I do a lot with pre-ICOs. So pre-ICOs before they list. Yeah. So a coin might list. Actually, today there's a coin I advise on, BitX coin. It ICO'd today at 50 cents. I got in at 4 cents pre-ICO. A lot of my friends and a network got in at 4 cents. So I know one guy put in 200,000 at 4 cents. So ICO's today at 50 cents. So he's made 12 and a half times that. So he's 200,000 has turned into 2.5 million. Now if that goes to $5, which most ICOs will go 10 times, a lot of them, then he's turned 200,000 into 25 million. So you can't do that in the stock market. Yeah. So and people go, well, you got to be able to get your money out. Well, you invest in small caps in the stock market, you still got to get your money out. In other words, there's got to be enough liquidity. So there's multiple different ways to make money, but of course, the best way to learn is get started. Go and buy $100 worth of Bitcoin. Some people still think, Casey, that you have to buy an entire Bitcoin. Bitcoin. That holds a lot of people. No, you can't buy $50. When you have a little bit of money in the market, it changes your psychology and you start to learn. Yeah,
it motivates you.
Yeah, I've helped so many people, novice investors, become millionaires, but they all start. My skill was always able to get them started. Yeah. Because there's only so much you can learn from a book or listen to someone. Yeah. The rest comes from action. So just do a little bit, and then away you go. It's fun, it's one of the greatest hobbies. I love the crypto industry. I'm a big believer in it. I'm very bullish. I speak to some of the most switched on people in the industry, and they still remain very bullish. And of course, as my viewpoints change, I'll always share them, whether it's on Facebook or with my followers, what my views are. But we'll assess new data and make our decisions. But I've seen nothing that's happened in recent times to say that Bitcoin will go to 50,000 before it goes to zero. That would be my view. Yeah. It would have probably went higher. But because now with the different forks and the multitude of cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin won't reach its highest price as it probably would in the past. It will be shared amongst a lot more, which you're starting to see. Bitcoin used to be 65% of the market. Now I think it's down to maybe 25-30% of the market. That's because the maturing of new technology. Bitcoin is the pioneer. It's like the cowboys that went west. The pioneers generally get the arrows in the back. The Indians shot them with arrows. Yeah. But they led the way for the others to follow. They set a path. Yeah. So often you've got to understand that. Bitcoin may not be the one that dominates in the future, but it's certainly been a great pioneer and a great ambassador and a great poster boy for the industry. So it will always do well because people know it the most. But now that most people have heard of Ripple, I've heard of Litecoin, I've heard of Bitcoin Cash. So they're getting a lot more knowledgeable. So people will get more savvy and the industry will mature. And it's like every industry, it has to prove itself. Yeah. So I wish it the best. And I think there's a lot of smart people in this industry. And in it for the right reason. So I would challenge people, don't just get into it for the sake of making money. Yeah. Understand the industry, know this is a chance to change the world. That's what really matters. Yeah. Whether you make money out of it is a bonus.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much again for your time in doing this. This has been amazing. Hopefully, because I still have 1,000 questions running through my head, we'll have to do a part 2.
More than welcome. Always happy to chat about crypto, Casey.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, I will put where people can find you in the description below, so we'll have all your social links and links.
Yeah,
to
sure.
where
They
to
can
get
find me on Facebook. It's probably the easiest, Jamie McIntyre. Or as I said, they want free information on my book, bitcoininc.org.
Okay.
They can. My book's on there. They give that away. That's probably the easiest way. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, great. Thanks so much, Jamie.
You're welcome. Pleasure.